If high-altitude mysteries keep you up at night, hit subscribe on The Story Beyond the Impact and tap the bell, because what you're about to hear was recorded at 0:00 when the sky turned into a corridor and the cabin turned into a mouth. My name is Mara Quinn. I read airplanes after they stop speaking. I sync the last breaths of voltage from flight data and layer them under the cockpit voice recorder until an outline of truth steps out of the noise. On North Atlantic 217, a red-eye from Newark to Shannon, the outline arrived at exactly 0 local time as computed by the FMS clocks, when the cabin heard a whisper with no lungs. The CVR on this 787 captured 4 channels: captain, first officer, observer, PA, and area mic. The first 40 minutes are routine: Mach 84, FL 350, PAX on norm, Delta P oscillating a polite 7.8 psi, coffee stirrers rattling, a casual joke about tailwinds. Then the FO, Keira Vale, says, crossing midnight in 4, as if narrating a race, and 3, 2, 1. The cabin chime rings once, timed, clean. It should mean nothing. But a heartbeat later, there's a second tone, thinner, synthetic, like a gate agent speaker waking. That tone does not live on an airplane in cruise. Did you key the PA? The captain asks. Negative, Keira says, eyebrows audible. INT guarded, PA dark. Cabin, flight deck, he calls. A slight delay, purser Jonah Alvarez jogging forward, headset jostling, then, go ahead. You keyed the PA? No, Captain, but a passenger says their air vent whispered their name. I pause. Rewind. The area mic holds it, a sibilant that isn't airflow, riding the boundary of hearing. A brushed steel hush. Spectral analysis shows a narrow comb between 3-4 kHz. Unnatural. Then words. Not from the overhead panel, not from the service interphone. From everywhere, the airplane is made of holes, PSU vents, door frames, seat track gaps, a sentence scraped into syllables like frost into glass. All aboard. Jonah again, in control, but thinner. Captain, row 7 and 8, report. Voices in the vents. Cold breath at L1. The door handle is, vibrating. I can feel it through the glove. You can't open a plug door at altitude, the captain replies, because saying the rule out loud makes it sturdier. Keep doors armed. I repeat, armed. I've heard fear in dozens of dialects. This crew fights it with checklists. Keira isolates systems. INT down, PA horn shut off, service interphone bus recycled. The whisper rides past the breaker logic like a moth that learned the shape of a window. Time hack, Keira says, voice a metronome. Our clocks just rolled local midnight. At that roll, new sounds colonize the tape. Not alarms, not turbulence. Footsteps. Not in the aisle, under it. The seat legs tick like a stethoscope on a ribcage. The floor path lights blink twice in unison, impossible without a command, and point their arrows aft. The airplane has opinions. Jonah's report scuffs in, breath fogging his mic. Forward galley temp shows 13 Celsius with PAX stable. That's not a thing. Coffee turned to mist. He swallows. Viewport at L1 shows reflections, I think. Chairs, a corridor. He puts his handset to the door. The CVR hears a sound that belongs at a gate. A rubber bellows testing its seal. A minor clunk of a jet bridge that is not here, finding a frame that is. My skin reacts even in a windowless lab. The captain's voice draws a calm box around panic. Eliminate electrical first. Keira, PA amp resets ineffective. Satcom quiet, guard silent. Copy. He presses all call. 1 ding becomes 3, like a mockingbird repeating us. Cabin, passengers are listening, Jonah says, and I hear it, 100 people holding breath to hear their names in the air. The whisper stops pretending to be wind. It tries on our language. It fails at grammar but succeeds at harm. Doors, to, arrival, cross, check. The syllables move down the aisle, a ripple along plastic and composite like a hand passing over wheat. Negative, The captain says into the PA, firm, making law. We are in flight. Doors remain armed. Cross-check armed. Something scrapes the ceiling above row 2, an animal inventing itself. Keira clicks her pen twice, her tell. Manual press if it plays with belief, she says. The 787's Icas doesn't complain when she bumps pressurization to man and nudges cabin VS a hair up, storytelling with pressure. We are departing, not arriving. It buys them 90 seconds. A new timbre creeps into the area mic. Tiles and HVAC. Airport acoustics leaking into a cabin that's 40 minutes from any ground. Then the sentence that ends Chapter 1, recorded at 0051 local, voiced by an algorithm stitched from 100 crew briefings and 1,000 gate calls, immaculate and wrong. Final call for North Atlantic 217, all passengers already on board. The oxygen in the lab tastes like aluminum. I press play again. Midnight is now the narrator. At 0003, Flight 217 becomes a listening device. When a cabin goes quiet for fear, you hear the mechanics of humanity, shoes flattening carpet to signals, zippers testing exit routes, ice gently suicide jumping in plastic cups. Layered under that, the whisper carries a new trick. It knows names. Cabin, flight deck, Jonah says, voice stretched thin but unbroken. Row 12 hears a woman whispering, Daniel. There is no Daniel in row 12. Copy calm language only. The captain replies. Keep belts on. Do not let anyone stand. The floor path arrows flip again, now pointing forward, and the exit plaques over L1R1 pulse, then hold steady like a stubborn vein. Keira keeps the math alive because math is faith with data. Cabin altitude 76, delta P 78, OAT -50, PAX norm, outflow valve steady, as if numbers can swaddle a whisper. They can't. The interphone whoomp opens without a finger. A dozen seats hit call buttons in a sad blue constellation. The whisper chooses seats at random and tries out nicknames no manifest knows. Nate, M, Jojo, Mama. People suppress sobs the way you swallow in turbulence. Viewport just fogged from the inside, Jonah reports. Frost tracing letters. I'm Captain, it's spelled enter backwards, like from the other side. The bellows kiss at L1 presses closer. A coffee stir stick skitters on the counter toward the door, as if the cabin were slanted a degree toward a hallway that does not exist. Jonah's breath steadies into operational tone. Inserting safety pin on L1, cart wedged. We are chanting armed. His voice shakes once on armed, then holds. Keira handles the cockpit like a church. PA horn still cut. ENT to ISO, VHF guard monitored. She tries humor because humor keeps people alive. If this is ATC, they owe me a logon. The captain does not laugh, but the air loosens a fraction. Language only, he says. We drown it in checklists. He starts a ritual. On my voice, door. Armed, Jonah replies. 3 passengers echo. 14 more find courage. Passengers. Seated, grows louder, Bones remembering evacuation briefs in reverse. Cross-check, armed. The whisper does not retreat, it listens. A child in 3A whispers to his mother, she said my name like Grandma. Grandma isn't on this airplane, Mom says. We are. At 09, the temperature falls in slices, a cold that finds wrists and ankles first. CVR hears the hiss change timbre around edges, indicator that frost is forming where warm breath hits metal. Jonah tries heat, both ovens on, doors ajar. Warmth pushes back like yellow light under a closet door. The whisper learns faster. It stops asking. It begins telling. Disarm. The syllable evaporates under Jonah's reply. Negative. And 100 quiet throats repeating him. But it doesn't need compliance to escalate. It needs attention. Attention feeds a thing with no body. The floor begins to knock, not feet, not bins. A belt loader's reverse beeper lives under the aisle for 3 strokes before dying, a ghost tug hunting our cargo door in the sky. The area mic catches a low throb none of the crew feels consciously, a frequency that makes human eyes sting. My notes, subsonic invitation. Keira nudges pressurization again. Man cabin VS plus 100. She says it to the airplane like a bedtime story. You are climbing, sweetheart. The RA whispers 50-40 from nowhere and dies when she curses and flicks LS off with a nail. Passengers begin to hear not just names but promises in the vents. You're already late. Your family is at the gate. Boarding group called. Just open. I can map the whispers to Rose by when call lights pop like bioluminescent plankton in a wake. Jonah moves like a linebacker and a priest, blocking the aisle with a cart, enforcing a perimeter with seatbelts and logic. Copy the door status, the captain demands. Not a plea, a schedule. L1 armed and pinned, Jonah says. Viewport shows chairs, no people. He hesitates, lets the worst spill. Except a smudge, where a face would be. Keira clicks the pen, once, twice. We're not arriving anywhere, she says for the tape. We departed. She leads the FO's call-outs for a go-round that doesn't happen because it doesn't need to, because words will have to be enough. Too gay. Positive rate, the captain replies, clinging to liturgy. Gear up, climb. Passengers murmur along with a ceremony they don't know, and the airplane behaves a fraction more like an airplane. EMA exit lights blink bright once, then stay dark. The jet bridge kiss at L1 softens from hungry to merely curious. Then the whisper tries a final gambit, intimacy. It speaks a secret into the metal that only Jonah should know. His childhood nickname, accented like his grandfather. His next breath trembles, then calibrates back to professional. Row 1 remains seated. Row 2, eyes forward. Door remains armed. The tape holds a sound I can't explain. A hand made of winter brushing a handle, disappointed. You can hear the glove creak, the rubber collar relax, the sigh of a jet bridge that exists only where clocks midnight themselves into mouths. I stop the transport, my own breath too loud in the lab. When I press play again, the airplane is a choir and a bunker. The only way through this night is to out-chant a voice that owns midnight. And the only leverage I have, as the analyst who will write the last page, is this. At 01233, the captain says, for the first time, the sentence that the families will argue with and eventually build altars around. We do not open anything in flight. Your lead cabin at 000, and the vents start saying names. What's your first move? Pull PA in T breakers, switch pressurization to man and tell the cabin you're climbing, or lock a perimeter with carts and lead a call and response. Door. Armed. Why? Midnight doesn't keep time the way clocks do. Midnight keeps doors. At 014, the tape stopped being a record of voices and became a contest of grammar. The airplane would speak in boarding calls and jet bridge sighs. The crew would answer with checklists and ritual. Whoever convinced the metal would win. Jonah, the purser, had found the exact edge of his courage and decided to live on it. Forward galley, ovens on, doors cracked for heat, coffee steaming again. He kept his tone managerial because fear loves adjectives, procedure loves verbs. Passengers repeating on my cue, we're doing call and response, door. Armed, came a dozen throats through his handset, the sound of people choosing a world. Passengers, seated, cross-check, armed. The whisper wasn't wind anymore. It was a mimic trying to pass a check ride it had written for us. Through the area mic, I heard a filament of sound slide down the ceiling panels like a finger tracing a seam. It stopped over row 2 and waited. When mimicry learns, it perches. Keira worked the flight deck like a violin, everything precise, nothing decorative. Pressurization remains man, she said for the tape, thumb on the 787's cabin VS knob. Commanding plus 100. Outflow holds. She wasn't moving air so much as moving meaning. The cabin would feel ever so slightly like departure, not arrival. And if the airplane believed we were leaving, the boarding chime had less narrative to parasitize. The printer woke. I felt my jaw tense before the paper even tore. A car's AOC, Keira read, disgust threading her professionalism. Gate B-17 final. PAX Jonah. A mean little miracle. The other place knew the name of the man holding the door closed. He didn't dignify it. "Copy not going," the captain said, flat as a checklist. "We do not open anything in flight." I have written that sentence so many times in this report that the keys on my laptop know it by muscle memory. It is not bravado or superstition, it's a mechanical truth. Plug doors rely on pressure to stay shut. Every second you keep the aircraft pressurized is a second the impossible must invent new physics. He was telling the thing, you don't get to rewrite the hinge. At Zoo 0.17, a lavatory smoke horn yelped for half a heartbeat, the kind of yip that tattoos panic onto a brain. "Fault, no smoke," Jonah said instantly. He knew that tone drills into the hindbrain. He smothered it in facts. "Reset is normal." The floor began to knock, not footsteps, infrastructure. The low-frequency bed under 150 Hz thickened, belt-loader cadence, a tug's backup beep, muffled by carpet that does not exist at altitude. The seat tracks hummed like tuning forks. The floor path lights blinked twice, and all their green arrows pivoted aft, pointing toward R2. It was a guidance system being hijacked by a story. "Aft reports handle at R2 humming," Jonah relayed. Safety pin inserted. Cart braced across the galley like a gate. His next breath frosted the handset. "Viewport at R2 shows. A different corridor. Brown vinyl. Number C9 on a sign. Copying the pattern forward. Language only," the captain said, and his voice made the lab feel bigger even though I was alone in it. "All call in 3. We drown it in the words that belong here." He pressed the chime. The airplane misbehaved politely. He called once. 3 dings answered, a chorus from nowhere. Elise would have sworn in Spanish. Jonah didn't swear. He led. "We're going to run nits," he said. The quick, brief cabin uses when the world refuses to fit. Nature, anomalous audio, thermal drop, doorframe vibration. Intentions, containment, keep doors armed. Time, open-ended, special instructions. Perimeter at both galleys, belts on, hands visible. The whisper learned a new syllable. It rolled it around like a gemstone and then pressed its cold mouth to the speakers. "Cross, check." No object, just the key, rubbed smooth. That frightened me more than any order to disarm. It meant the thing had figured out which of our words mattered most and wanted to own it. "Give it the object," the captain told Jonah, and I could see his hand, not shaking on the thrust levers. "Cross-check armed," Jonah said, and the cabin echoed intentionally, fiercely, a wall of breath turning a procedure into a barricade. The hull answered with tiny, well-behaved creaks, the good kind, the kind aluminum makes when it remembers what it is. A child asked perfectly, "If the airport is at the door, does that mean we're already there?" "No," Jonah said without looking. "It means the airport is lost." The A-cars spat one more scrap. C9 rebooked, PAX Keira, as if it could negotiate. Keira fed the strip into the cockpit ashtray slot, an aircraft relic that has outlived cigarettes and will outlive hauntings. "You don't get me," she said to the printer and pressed PA to say to the cabin, "Remain seated. Belts fastened. We're in cruise." At 021 the ceiling moved. Not visibly, audibly. Plastic liner over the forward galley made a quiet, abraded sound, as if something turned around in a crawl space that doesn't exist. Row 2's reading lights dimmed in a traveling wave and came back. The area mic recorded one small, affectionate tap on the top of Jonah's metal cart, as though a neighbor had knocked to borrow sugar. "Whatever it is, it's perched above the galley," Keira said, her pen clicking once. She'd given up pretending she didn't assign habits to the unexplainable. "Manual press holding, cabin VS plus 100, outflow valve, obedient." She loved that word the way some people love prayer. The jet bridge sound at L1 sagged, a rubber collar losing interest. R2's frame answered with a gentle clunk, the sigh of a connection failing to seat. The whisper denied purchase, tried intimacy again. It said the captain's first name, like someone who had known him at 13. The tape caught the sound of his mouth closing around a memory and refusing to bite. "Center," he said into the actual radio with the exact calm you reserve for navigating through the last precinct of hell. 717 on 123.85, radio check. 717, loud and clear, real ATC said, and a sliver of ordinary slid under the door like sunshine. The block ended on a sentence that doesn't look like much on paper, but that rearranged my spine. Jonah, whispering into the handset to the ship he served. "Cabin ready," and the airplane believing him more than the voice that owned midnight. I hit stop to sip water and discovered my hand around the bottle was shaking. Play! If the thing couldn't force a door, it would try the people. At 0024, the tape stopped being about hardware and became about names. Call lights came up not in clusters, but in a line, 7A, 8C, 9D, like a scanner sweeping. Each press was followed by a small intake of breath and the same sentence, whispered with shame, as if the speaker had been caught believing in something silly. It said my name. There's a physics to group dread. Enough people hearing their names and a cabin will start trying to see the mouth that spoke. Jonah stiff-armed that vector before it bent the aisle out of shape. "Eyes forward," he said into the cabin mic, firm, not loud. "Hands on belts, breathe when I breathe. Door?" "Armed," answered the choir. "Passengers?" "Seated." "Cross-check?" "Armed." And then the whisper cheated. It stopped choosing and started collecting. ACARS spit a continuous ribbon, thermal paper unspooling like a pale intestine. Keira tore and scanned and went still. Manifest. All PAX. Present. All PAX. Final repeated down the strip. No seat numbers. Just a theological claim. Everyone who could ever be on this airplane, here, now. "Trash it," the captain said. He didn't look. The floor throb migrated forward. You can measure it on the spectrogram. It's a river under 120 hertz moving like a machine being wheeled up a hallway. The area mic caught a single metallic clatter near row 3. The sound a telescoping jet bridge makes when a foot slips on its little built-in steps. If you have never heard that sound, good. If you have, you will never mistake it. Forward viewport shows a chair with a coat, Jonah reported, as if reading weather. The coat moves as if someone sat down. He inhaled once, a sob penciled into a professional breath, then continued, "Safety, pin secure, cart braced, handle cold to the bone." The 787 has a trick we never advertise. When you're very quiet, you can hear the pack valve modulation as the automation kisses a temperature set point. That modulation stayed stable, no sinister breathing. Keira narrated it anyway because narration is a seatbelt. PAX norm. Cabin temp targets 22 Celsius. Manual press remains. Outflow valve percent unchanged. Her voice was the opposite of a whisper. It made room. The whisper answered with theft. It stole her timbre, that clipped instructor cadence, and fed it back through the PA. Cabin crew, disarm doors and cross-check. It nailed the vowels. It missed the soul. The captain overrode it with his line, "No, doors remain armed. We do not open anything in flight." That sentence is a hammer. Every time he used it, the hull rang true. The RA call-outs bled in from nowhere, 50, 40, like a kid pressing toy buttons under a blanket. Keira flicked LS off again, muttered an apology to physics, and said softly to the airplane and to herself, "Go around call-outs. Too gay. Positive rate. Gear up. Climb." Every time they laid that rhythm over the tape, the ghost script frayed. The exit signs blinked once in sulk. The jet bridge sigh faded from hungry to bored. The floor arrows turned forward again like magnets remembering north. At 0028, the whisper tried the meanest instrument, grief. It spoke a dead name, not mine. Not Jonah's, the captain's. A first name only he and two other people in the world had said in that exact way. The CVR registered nothing exceptional in his respiration, only a pause the length of an old photograph. "Cabin, status," he said, choosing the present so hard you can hear the choice. "Cabin ready," Jonah replied, and the call lights above rose 110, blinked off like a string of little capitulations. The printer coughed once more. B-17, boarding complete. Doors may close. Keira, done being polite to paper, folded the strip into a tight square and slid it under the dead weight of the QRH like a shim. Procedure literally on top of suggestion. "No," she told the thing with the only word that had ever saved anyone. Something in the ceiling shifted posture. The perched weight above the galley crawled 2 panels aft and stopped, listening. I could hear the subtle rasp of composite rubbing composite. I imagined fingers made of frost, checking for latches that aren't there. The captain pressed all call. This time 1 ding answered 1 ding. No echo, no chorus. He took that as beachhead and expanded it. "Cabin, we're going to do something silly and true. Repeat after me. We are not arriving." 100 throats. "We are not arriving. We are in flight. In flight. Doors remain. Armed. Cross-check. Armed." The whisper tried to wear our words a final time. It got as far as cross and tore like fabric. At 031, real ATC came back with the kind of boredom that heals. "North Atlantic 217, expect descent in 10. Expect descent in 10, the captain read back, and I felt the tape itself shed a layer. The boarding chime, so proud a few minutes earlier, rang one last time like a toy whose battery has resigned. I stopped the transport to catch my breath and found a ribbon of thermal paper on my desk. I don't remember tearing off. Manifest. All PAX present. I folded it and slid it under the recorder the way Keira had under her QRH. The lab's ancient HVAC sighed in agreement, or it only seemed to. Back on the tape, Jonah closed his loop with the only sentence that ever makes a cabin a ship instead of a rumor. "Cabin ready." And midnight, for the first time, blinked. Rotund 33. The airplane grew abasement. Low frequencies, felt more than heard, began stepping under the aisle in the exact cadence of a belt loader backing away. The CVR painted it as a dark river below 150 Hertz, moving from aft to forward like a procession. "Aft reports R2, handle vibrating again," Jonah said. "Safety pin set, cart braced like a bulkhead." His breath whitened the mic. "Viewport shows a brown corridor. Sign says C9, no people. Just the idea of people." Keira didn't give the thing her silence. "PAX 2 HI, targets 26 forward, 28 aft." Ovens hummed. She was changing not the thermodynamics so much as the story. Warmth means on the way out, not on the way in. The floor path arrows, those polite green lights that want to save you, flicked and pointed aft again. Guidance without a brain. "Leave them," Jonah told the cabin. "Belts on, hands visible." He was talking to passengers and, I think, to the airplane. The printer woke like a bad conscience. "Cargo aft. Load ready. B-17. The paper rattled into Keira's hand. She didn't look at it. She fed it under the weight of the quick reference handbook, procedure literally crushing suggestion. "Negative," she said to nobody she'd accept as real. "We do not open anything in flight." A lav smoke horn chirped, one predatory syllable. "Fault. No smoke." Jonah cut it off with facts. "Reset normal." He had learned in 2 minutes what takes some crews years. Don't argue with fear. Crowd it out with verbs. Under us, the throb reached the forward galley and stopped the way a jet bridge stops when it finds its mark. Something rubber-soft exhaled against L1's frame, a collar sealing to aluminum it had no right to touch. A coffee stirrer inched toward the door as if gravity had a new opinion. The area mic caught a hiss that wasn't wind. It was breath through a keyhole that never existed. "Manual press remains," Keira said, thumb on the 787's cabin VS knob, commanding a whisper of climb. "Outflow valve obedient." That last word steadied me across an ocean. The whisper tried a trick it had been saving. It crawled into the vents and said people's names the way only their dead would. Row 9's call light pinged. It said Lenny, a man told Jonah, ashamed of how much he wanted to hear it again. There's no Lenny on our manifest, Jonah answered, and put his palm over the man's buckle as if laying on a sacrament. Stay with me. Arrows flipped forward, then aft, as if something were calibrating for an evacuation into nowhere. The exit plaques over L1R1 pulsed once and held. From above the galley I heard the soft scrape of composite against composite. The perched weight changed knees. Language only, the captain said. We drown it. He hit all call. For the first time in minutes, one chime answered one chime. Beachhead. Door, Jonah said into the handset, and the cabin found its courage. Armed, they answered, shy then sure. Passengers. Seated. Cross-check. Armed. The jet bridge sigh weakened. The belt loader beeps under the aisle, stuttered and died like a battery quitting. The floor throb retreated aft 2 rows and sulked there. A machine denied a barcode. The printer coughed another cruelty. Cargo door latch open, checklist. It was a lie, the ECAS stayed quiet. Keira tore the strip, folded it to a neat square, and slid it under the recorder like a shim in a crooked table. You don't get to define our faults, she said. Then to Jonah, status. Forward, L1 pinned, heat holding, viewport shows chairs only. A coat, moved. He let the fear pass through and leave. Aft, R2 pinned, corridor frozen in place. Masks in row 2 dropped without a pressure reason, grey bags hanging like jellyfish that had lost the sea. No other rows followed. Ignore the theatre, Jonah told the nearest faces. Breathe with me. He lifted the cups gently, as if picking up living things and promising to put them back. Under the floor, something tried to align with us one last time, a single clunk, like a loader bumping a sill. Then stillness. The metal made the tiny, warm creaks you only hear when the story is yours again. I wrote a line I hadn't dared yet. The airplane prefers our grammar. The whisper hated that. It moved up a tier. 039. The ceiling learned to listen. The area mic caught a traveling hush along the PSU panels, left to right, row by row, like fingertips drumming on a desk above your head. Every drummed beat arrived with a name that belonged to someone's private life and didn't belong to any airline system. Row 3 kid says grandma is calling from the vent, Jonah reported, tone flat enough to walk on. I told him grandma doesn't ride ducks. The child laughed once, a human flare, and the hush retreated a span. The RA callouts, fake, flagless, drifted again. 50, 40. Keira flicked LS off hard enough the switch thunked. RA flagged. We're not near anything, she said to physics, to me, to whatever understood truth by repetition. The whisper went for authority. In Keira's exact cadence it said, cabin crew, disarm doors and cross-check. It had stolen her vowels perfectly and none of her power. The captain overlaid it with steel. Negative. Doors remain armed. Cross-check armed. We are in flight. I watched his words etch into the spectrogram like rails hammered into night. Something above the forward galley unfolded. Not a door. A posture. The liner flexed inward a fingertip's width, then eased back. A screwhead creaked a quarter turn and stopped, as if reminded of torque settings by grammar alone. The exit plaques refused to blink. Pressurization to auto, Keira decided. Ritual mattered more than manual control now. The airplane needed to hear its own systems in their normal arrangement. Cabin VS steady, PAX norm. She paused, listening to her instruments like a cardiologist to a chest. Good girl, she told the hull, and the hiss softened half a note. The printer tried a different lure. Cabin ready? With a question mark. Jonah answered it with the only punctuation that counts. He pressed the handset and, to the ship that had turned into a mouth, said, cabin ready. Not brave, professional. The word landed. The ceiling hush blinked. Then the whisper aimed at me again, through time, through tape, through whatever seam stories use. "Mara," it said in a voice made from hundreds of hours. The crew didn't react. How could they? But I took my hands off the transport to prove to myself I hadn't keyed anything. The recorder's orange light just sat there being a witness. "Guard remains quiet," Keira said, anchoring us to the living sky. ATC slid back in with all the mercy of boredom. "North Atlantic 217, descend and maintain 240. Leaving 350 for 240, the captain read back. Normal syllables, squared corners. The whisper recoiled. It hates parameters. The descent was real, thrust eased. A little trim wheel hum, the kind that makes flight attendants smile because it means the next part of the night is finite. "Seatbelt sign on," the captain said. Ding! 100 buckles tapped the present tense. The thing made one more bid for the ceiling. A line of reading lights over rows 1-4 died and relit, left to right, in the tempo of footsteps overhead. The liner over the galley bowed the width of a thumbnail and held, as if something had put its ear to our roof. "On my mark," Jonah said, voice like a spine. "Door. Armed. Passengers. Seated. Cross-check. Armed." The bowing relaxed. The footsteps unspooled into nothing. The exit plaques stayed dull as old pennies. The only sound left that didn't belong to physics was a last embarrassed boarding chime from nowhere, quiet as a toy packed at the bottom of a bag. "Before descent checklist," Keira said. Systems responded like an orchestra finding its key. The printer, starved of audience, went still. I wrote, without shaking this time. The ceiling believed us. And then, because midnight is a long animal, the interphone chimed triple Emma from nowhere, and a new line printed without anyone touching a key. "Manifest update. All PAX present. Crew X8. Final." It knew exactly how many of us were alive. The strip curled out of the printer like a tongue. "Manifest update. All PAX present. Crew X8. Final." I checked the ops package again out of habit, as if paper could outvote a haunting. Tonight's roster carried 7. The 8th existed only where midnight keeps books. "Say again?" the captain asked, not quite asking. Keira read flat. "ACRs claims 8 crew." She didn't add, and it knows math. She didn't have to. Jonah keyed INT from the forward jump seat. "We have 2 jump seats up here, occupied by me and..." He stopped. A small metal tat laid itself on the tape, the sound of a belt tongue finding a buckle with no hand behind it. "By nobody." His voice edited the fear. "Correction. Belt tightened on its own." The FWD page on the 787's cabin panel chimed with a little green dot I have only ever seen when a jump seat sensor sees a body. JS FWDL. Occupied. It should have been funny. It wasn't. You could hear the fabric webbing ratchet a notch tighter around air. "Leave it," the captain said. "Calm is a tool, not a mood. Belts on everywhere, doors remain armed." Real ATC cut in like a nurse changing sheets without asking your permission. "North Atlantic 217, descend and maintain, flight level 180. Leaving 240 for 180, Keira read back. Thrust eased. The pack hiss deepened a tone. The hull gave that tired, friendly creak of a descent that actually exists. The fake systems tried to keep up. "Crew check. Ready?" Printed under her hand. She slid the slip under the dead weight of the QRH like a talisman. "Ready when we say," she told the airplane. The cabin answered to their grammar. When Jonah spoke, people obeyed the shape of his sentences like they were straps. "Door," he said. "Armed." The forward rows echoed. "Passengers. Seated. Cross-check. Armed." The extra presence wanted in the ritual. The PA lifted Jonah's cadence and threw it back a half-second late, an echo loop made of brass and breath. "Cabin ready?" said a voice that was almost his and not any human's. The jump seat belt answered with another neat tat. The FWD panel still said occupied. Keira's pen clicked once. Translation: I see you. You don't get the checklist. Pressurization auto. Cabin VS 300 down. Outflow valve obedient. The floor path arrows, which had pointed aft like a rumor turning into an exit plan, flipped forward and held. The exit plaques over L1R1 stayed dull. The jet bridge sound at L1, rubber collar auditioning a seal, pulled back a centimeter in the ghostly way only tape can measure. Guard remains quiet, Keira said, and the relief in her voice was the cleanest sound of the night. The printer coughed one more claim. Crew roll call. Jonah, Keira, capped. It stopped at 8th, present. The CVR area mic recorded a breath from nowhere, not cold now, patient. The extra didn't pound. It counted. Negative, the captain said, to the A-cars, to the belt that tightened itself, to the mouth in the vents. We do not open anything in flight. I wrote the line again and felt a stupid, superstitious need to underline it twice. The orange light on the recorder hummed like a votive. The extra crew member made one final bid to be real. On the FWD panel, PA, all call, toggled for a blink by itself. A single chime answered. A perfect, ordinary ding. Jonah smiled into the handset so you could hear it. Copy 1, he said, patting air where a shoulder should be. You don't get a station. The block ended on a kindness I still don't know where to file. The creak of webbing relaxing, the jump seat belt giving back its notch with a soft sigh. The manifest stayed wrong. The airplane behaved anyway. Real descent is a relief until the world tries to rhyme with it. At 12,000, the RA voice, the real one, woke properly. The cabin breathed like people remember how. The ghost script, angry at being outvoted by altitude and ATC, went for the hinge again. Forward viewport frosting, Jonah reported. Handle humming. Safety pin firm. The area mic carried a new tone along the doorframe. A low, eager purr like a cat in a stranger's lap. The rubber bellows sigh of a jet bridge rolled up from memory and pressed its cheek to L1. Thumb. The curtain pulled a finger's width toward the seam. Restraint kit, Jonah said, and you can hear fabric metal knuckles, fast, practiced. He lashed the handle to the galley stanchion in a sailor's knot none of our manuals teach. Cart brakes set, ovens on, heat on the joint. The PA tried to beat him to the word. Cabin crew, doors to our... The captain's voice walked over it. Negative. Doors remain armed. You can hear the sentence hit the hull and sit down. Masks popped in row 1 again, showy as theater. Nobody else's. Jonah lifted them gently, set them back in their ceilings like birds that had flown into glass. Eyes forward, he told 6 faces and a rumor. We're still in flight. ATC, blessedly bored. 217, reduced to 210 knots, descend and maintain 6,000. 210, 6,000, Keira read back and clicked the speed window open. Auto thrust sighed. The descent felt like gravity reintroducing you to your bones. The printer, starved for stage, reached for me again. B-17, doors may open, Pax Mara. The crew did not react. They couldn't. The orange recorder stared at me like a second conscience. I slid the strip under the machine's foot and wrote with a stupid, furious neatness, I am not on board. Overhead, the thing made one last clever noise. GPWS minimums, a synthetic call from no speaker that should be live yet. Keira killed LS like swatting a fly. Flagged, she said, and fed the airplane her own checklist to chew instead. Before landing to the line, the floor path arrows, faithful little saints, stayed forward. Exit plaques held. The jet bridge collar at L1 let go a breath and then pressed back harder. The handle ticked just once, up a hair against the pin. On my call, Jonah said, voice like a keel. Door. Armed. Passengers. Seated. Cross-check. Armed. The tick died. The bellows sighed, not in triumph now. Deflation. Somewhere aft, R2 answered with a sulky clunk, like a machine being told to back away by a better story. 10,000. The seatbelt ding earned 2 sobs that were mostly relief. Lights in the cabin shifted toward human. The extra crew member made a last bid to exist. The FWD panel blinked, JS FWDL, occupied for a heartbeat and cleared like a hand raised in a roll call nobody honored. ATC has us for the ILS-17, the captain said. Every syllable he spoke was a sandbag along a river that had tried to learn our name. Cabin? Cabin ready, Jonah said. And for the first time, the PA didn't answer him. The tape gathered itself for the home stretch, flaps in stages, a hum like velvet being combed. The outside mics catching honest wet. The whisper did not die. It flattened, the way surf goes quiet when you're far from shore. It saved one small cruelty for me. Mara, present. I did not pause the transport this time. I let the crew's sentences talk me through it. Localizer alive, Keira said. Glide path captured. Stable, the captain answered. Stable, Jonah echoed without knowing he'd said it. And the forward handle at L1 went still under his hand, the way a frightened animal will trust the touch that refuses to flinch. The block ended on the sound of the jet bridge sigh, finally losing interest, rubber letting go of aluminum that never should have met, and on a pen scratching no further abnormal across the incredible. A minute later, we would hear the approach lights like a prayer people invented together, but midnight owns its debts. The printer twitched once, as if waking from a dream, and spit a last thin line. All PAX present. Doors may open. The crew said the only line that mattered back to it, in unison, like a verdict. We do not open anything in flight. Real life took the controls. ATC cleared the ILS, localizer alive, glide path captured, the kind of music that makes a cabin exhale. The RA voice, the real one, counted down like a nursery rhyme with teeth filed flat. The touchdown kiss was honest. Mains, spoilers, reverses, wet hiss. The CVR heard joy leak out of 100 throats because friction is proof you share a planet. 70 knots. Vacating left, the captain said. The outside mics took in rain on composite tug horns, a bored marshaller's whistle. The printer, quiet for the last 10 minutes, woke like a conscience. Taxi instructions. Stand Alpha 1-2. Keira read it, smiled. Paper getting back to being paper. Chocks in, Ground said a minute later. Beacon off. The airplanes sighed the way houses do when parties end. The sentence that saved them all night arrived finally in its proper habitat. Cabin crew, disarm slides and cross-check, the captain called. L1 disarmed, cross-check good, Jonah reported. The safety pin left the handle with a domestic little clink that belongs to airports, not legends. Ovens went off. Belts on jump seats loosened. The floor path arrows were politely irrelevant again. The jet bridge rolled. The area mic loved that sound a little too much now. Rubber collar kiss, telescoping groan, micro-settled clunk. The viewport at L1 fogged and cleared. The forward camera, its audio leaks to the CVR if you know what to listen for, captured a rectangle of fluorescent light, a slice of terminal no different from 1,000 nights of work, except for the sign. Jonah's voice came thin. Forward, copy B-17 on the header, Keira dry. We're on A-12. The rectangle beyond the doorframe flickered. B-17 overlaying C-9 in the reflection like a misprinted ticket. The ramp knock came, 2-2-1, except it didn't. 1-2-2. Wrong code, right rhythm's ghost. The PA tried to swallow the moment whole. All PAX present, doors may open. The captain pressed his advantage anyway. Forward, open, he said, confident as gravity. The recorder saved the hinge's little homey squeal, latch, handle, cam. L1 moved. The world on the other side tilted. Not physically, acoustically. Tile echo rolled in like distant surf. A wheelie bag's clatter came from too long a corridor for the stand they'd been assigned. Somewhere out there, an old HVAC breathed with the same pattern I'd been hearing since Zuo. Oh. Welcome, Jonah began on reflex. The jet bridge did something I hope never to hear again. Its rubber collar tightened after the door cleared, like lips sealing around a name. The PA stole Jonah's cadence half a beat late. Welcome. And then nobody's word, not English, just permission. Passengers stood because that is what humans do when ramps attach. The CVR caught ordinary kindnesses. You first, mind the bag, a toddler's protest yop. The forward cartwheels squeaked as Jonah nudged them back to make space. A little laugh, his, because order is a drug. And then, small weirdness scaling to policy. The forward camera's footstep echo did not shrink as people entered the jet bridge. It grew. It sounded like a hallway longer than the stand, longer than the building, longer than the hour between midnight and whatever keeps books on the other side. Ground, verify stand, Keira asked on VHF, some old muscle noticing rhythm. 217, you're on A12, jet bridge operator reports normal. Copy, she said to the radio. To the captain, soft. The sign still says B17, C9. The printer spat one last strip, all PAX present. All crew present. Doors may close. Keira didn't feed it under the QRH. She put it face down on the pedestal like a card she refused to play. Boots on aluminum, Jonah's mic picked up a thank you that belonged to a voice with no weather in it. 2 seconds later, the jet bridge exhaled, but not the way bridges do when agents pull them back, like the long, low breath a person gives after counting heads. Forward status, the captain asked. Not because he didn't know, but because saying it keeps the hull in this world. Forward, cabin emptying. A beat. Cabin empty. Another beat. Longer, coming from a place without clocks. Forward clear. The door remained open. The tape stayed on. I keep a rule in the lab. Never write the ending until the airplane gives it to you. Flight 217 gave me 3, ending A, ATC, ground recorded A12, chocks in, GPUs connected, jet bridge attached, operator satisfied, ramp logs show green across the board, that world is tidy. Ending B, CVR. The last 90 seconds, a tile echo, bag wheels, the hush of a corridor, big enough for more than life. The cabin mics hear deplaning until they don't. No final door thud. No door closed, just silence fat with breath that isn't there anymore. Ending C, ops. When maintenance boarded at 01:08 to sign the log, the aircraft was empty. Galley ovens warm, safety pins where they belong, carts braked, masks repacked in row 1 by some conscientious hand. 8 crew seats, 7 straps loose, 1 still snug across no body. Cabin temp 20 centigrade 60. Skin temp around L1, colder by 3 degrees, as if someone had leaned against the frame and never warmed. Security pulled ramp CCTV. The footage showed a jet bridge at A12 and passengers walking into it, and then nothing where a hallway should be. Not black. Nothing. A filter glitch, IT said. The video timecode read 0.0 across frames. IT said that was a sync issue too. They say a lot of things when physics develops a grammar problem. I filed the report. I layered the ACARS strips in my appendix, even though no one likes ghost paper. All PAX present. Crew X8. Final. The legal department will hate that line. Families will carve it into stone. There were no bodies, there were no survivors. There were names, and names were enough for midnight to balance a ledger. I powered down the recorder. The orange light died. The room went back to fluorescent and the stale, serious smell of dust and plastic and old coffee. And then I got my ending. The lab's dead thermal printer, unplugged I swear, twitched and fed out one pale tongue. I didn't touch it right away. The HVAC made an old terminal hiss. My door, solid, no glass, took a soft clunk along its jamb like rubber bellows testing a seal. Somewhere between fear and profanity, I laughed. I flipped the strip. Gate B17. Final call. PAX Mara. All PAX present. I slid it under the recorder the way Keira slid lies under the QRH. The room's hum changed by only the amount imagination accounts for. The intercom on my wall, no feed to ATC, just a building line, clicked once and died. In that click was a dozen duplicate clicks, and under those a whisper built from 100 of our voices. Cabin ready. Negative, I said, alone, and meant it. We do not open anything in flight. I put my palm on a door that wasn't a door and felt nothing but wood. The tape is over. The story isn't. Tomorrow, somebody will rename this "None Survived" and sell ads against the absence. They won't be wrong. Not one human on Flight 217 came back through a door we can audit. Not one name came back unchanged. I shut the lab lights. The hall outside smelled faintly of jet fuel and tile. Midnight owns the paperwork now. I own one line, and you can have it if it helps. We do not open anything in flight. If this midnight left a mark, like the video, subscribe to The Story Beyond the Impact and share it with someone who thinks procedures can't beat ghosts.